deep inside the yellow drilling tent, the winch screamed as the core barrel surfaced from 3,447 meters of black ice. Mark Rutledge lifted the meter-long cylinder from the extractor, its surface opaque with frost, and carried it toward the lab. Under the warm tungsten bulbs of the lab tent, the core lay on its cradle, deceptively clear and perfect. His hand reached for the fluorescent switch. The instant the harsh white light flooded the tent, the ice betrayed him. Through the suddenly translucent ice, a dark segmented shape ran the entire length of the core, vertebrae like shadows frozen in place. Mark staggered back, face bloodless. He had drilled 9 seasons and never seen an inclusion like this. Then it twitched. A single spastic contraction rippled through the shape, and hairline cracks spread outward from within. Dr. Emil Vargas strode in, saw the impossible thing still quivering, and his voice was ice. Rule 6. Bury it now. Hands moved without hesitation. They refroze the core, wrapped it in a tarp, and rushed it back through the snow-walled tunnel toward the borehole. The core dropped into darkness, and Emil poured the quickset epoxy over the cap. The log entry that night would read only, "Void return." Mark Rutledge had spent 9 seasons drilling ice cores on the Antarctic plateau. He knew the 6 rules by heart. Every driller did.
You don't learn them from a manual. You learn them from the look in a man's eyes after he's broken one.
The first rule was the simplest. Never extract 2 cores in the same hour below 3,000 meters. It sounded like an efficiency guideline. It wasn't. In the drill journal, the entry under Rule 1 had a single name next to it in cramped ink: Kowalski. Kowalski had been a driller at Vostok in the 80s. One night, impatient, he pulled a second core just 40 minutes after the first. The core came up in pieces, not broken, but arranged on the tray in a perfect inward spiral, each shard touching.
He swore he heard a hum from the borehole afterwards, like a tuning fork buried miles down. He never went back on the ice.
Rule 1 wasn't about equipment fatigue. It was about giving the ice time to settle, to forget you'd been there.
That's what the old drillers whisper. The ice has a memory, and if you agitate it too fast, it remembers you.
Mark had never broken Rule 1, but he'd had a night when he pulled a core and felt the borehole exhale something colder than the plateau, and he'd waited a full 2 hours before the next extraction. But the second rule drilled deeper into the strange, below 3,200 meters. Examine cores only under tungsten light, never fluorescent.
Emil told me once, during a whiteout, the rule was written after a woman named Clara lost her mind at Dome Fuji.
Clara had been a veteran glaciologist. One night, she carried a fresh deep core into the lab and flicked on the fluorescence. Through the ice, something uncoiled. A dark shape with jointed segments, not fossil, but flesh. She dropped the core. It shattered.
The shards didn't just lie there. She swore they crawled away from the light, leaving a faint smear on the stainless steel.
After Clara's breakdown, the station chief banned fluorescent lighting below 3,200 meters. Tungsten bulbs were wired in the next day. Later, drillers found one of Clara's shards in a freezer drawer, sealed in a lead container. It was still twitching.
I remembered Clara every time I saw a tungsten bulb, and on the 14th of December, I still reached for the fluorescent switch.
Rule 2 wasn't about preserving the samples. It was about not waking what hid inside them. 2 rules now, both born from nightmares. Mark had the rest of the list burned into his memory. Rule 3 was more intimate. If a core sample ever warms in your hand, return it to the freezer immediately. No hesitation.
My second season, a core from 3,100 meters warmed through my glove. I felt it pulse like skin.
He placed it in the core freezer and closed the door. When he returned an hour later, the freezer was in shambles. The core had shattered, The pieces had crawled across the floor and reformed into a shape, a hand with too many fingers.
I used a shovel to scrape it into a bag. The fingers moved when I touched them. I never handled a core without thick mittens again.
Rule 4 was a different kind of precaution. The crew was not permitted to consume alcohol the night following an extraction.
The rule book said alcohol impairs observation, but a driller named Beckett told me the real reason.
At a camp in the Antarctics, a crew drank vodka after a deep pull. That night, they heard scratching, fingernails on the freezer door. They found one core missing a section, a perfectly cylindrical piece excised, as if something had bitten it out from inside.
At dawn, they found footprints leading from the borehole to the lab. They ended at the freezer wall. No return.
Rule 5 concerned documentation. Cores with visible inclusions were to be photographed only by film camera, never digital.
The rule sounded paranoid until a tech at Dome C used a digital camera on a core from 3,300 meters.
The image on the screen showed a face, a human face, pressed against the ice from the inside, mouth open. The film backup from the same core showed only a small air pocket. The digital files corrupted within minutes. That tech quit before the season ended. He told Emil the face was still looking out from his laptop screen. Rule 6 was the final protocol, the one you hoped you'd never use. If a core moved, it went back to its borehole, the hole capped forever.
They said it had only been invoked 3 times. I never thought I'd see a 4th.
But on the 14th of December, 2018, at depth 3,447 meters, Mark Rutledge would break that expectation. He could still remember the weight of that core in his hands, the way the ice seemed to hum. The morning of the 14th of December, 2018, the drill tent at Camp 8 was silent, except for the heavy tick of the winch.
The depth gauge read 3,447 meters, the deepest they had ever drilled. I felt the plateau breathing beneath my feet.
The seismograph is erratic, a low-frequency pulse every 40 seconds. But we follow protocol. We pull the core.
The core barrel surfaced with a low hum, not mechanical, organic, like a throat resonating far below.
That hum, I had heard it before in a story about Kowalski. A tuning fork a mile down.
They opened the barrel under tungsten lamps. The ice pristine, clear as glass, not a single inclusion visible.
For a moment, I exhaled. Maybe the depth had just spooked us. Maybe it was just ice.
The depth gauge still flickered, a silent tremor beneath the numbers.
Mark, take it to the lab. Standard documentation. And stay on tungsten.
Mark lifted the core. The hum had stopped, but the pressure in his skull had not. Something was waiting. Mark set the core onto the lab cradle, under warm tungsten, the ice still flawless from that angle.
Protocol demanded a full spectrum log. Tungsten first, then fluorescent. Rule 2 screamed in my head, but the core was clean.
His glove closed on the switch. The fluorescent tubes hummed and flooded the tent with harsh actinic white. Instantly, the core transformed. A dark, segmented shape with vertebrae-like structure ran the entire meter, starkly visible.
It had been there the whole time, hiding in the light. I had been holding it. Emil, everyone, get in here now.
The crew of 7 crammed into the lab, their breath fogging in the cold, all eyes fixed on the impossible invertebrate.
Mein Gott, what is that?
It twitched, a single violent spasm that fractured the ice outward from its body. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the creature spasmed again, and someone screamed.
Emil's voice cut through the panic. Rule 6, seal it, now.
No one argued. Hands reached for the cryopack, cooling the core until it stilled. Mark wrapped the core in a heavy tarp, his gloves shaking against the frozen surface. The walk back was silent, except for crunching snow and their own rasping breath.
Emil pointed at the borehole. Drop it. All the way down.
Mark lowered the bundle into the black shaft, the cable groaning. A distant thud echoed. Emil immediately poured quickset epoxy over the metal cap, sealing it permanently to the ice floor.
I stared at that cap, replaying the twitch. I couldn't unsee it.
Emil opened the drill logbook and wrote the date, the depth, and 2 words, void return. The crew filed out. No one spoke the rest of the night. The borehole was a sealed grave.
I lay in my bunk that night, staring at the ceiling. The twitch replayed in the dark. I didn't close my eyes.
At breakfast, the crew assembled like ghosts. Metal spoons clinked. No one mentioned the extraction, the core, or the cap. Emil sat at the head, coffee untouched. His glasses caught the light, but his eyes were somewhere else.
No one entered the lab tent for a week. The fluorescence stayed off. The tungsten bulbs seemed dimmer somehow.
Mark found himself standing over the sealed cap daily, as if expecting it to crack. It never did.
But I could still hear the hum deep under the ice, a frequency that lodged in my teeth.
He slept 2 hours a night. The bunk porthole showed only blackness and the planet's indifferent arch of stars. When the season closed and the snowcat arrived, Mark loaded his gear without a backward glance at the tent.
But the cap was still there, a metal scar on the ice. I took it with me, in the space behind my ribs.
The camp emptied. The borehole remained, silent, buried, but Mark would carry the 14th of December for the rest of his life, 5 years after Camp 8 was shuttered. Mark Rutledge stood at the edge of the ice shelf, running shallow core research. One gray morning, he sat at his terminal and logged into the station's email server.
I had left deep drilling behind. No fluorescence, no suspicious logs, just clean ice.
Then a new message appeared. Sender anonymous. Subject: we are counting cores. The attachment downloaded. A photo of an ice core. Embedded inside was the dark, segmented shape. Unmistakable.
Same vertebrae. Same horror. After 5 years, it had come back for me.
He traced the metadata. The originating IP resolved to the old Camp 8 communications server. A ghost site buried under a kilometer of snow.
The camp was dismantled. The server should be dead, but something was still running down there.
His coffee went cold. He hadn't moved in minutes. The cursor blinked beside the photo.
The hole did not seal, and now it was writing back.
Mark's fingers trembled as he clicked the message open. The text was spare, clinical, and older than any language he knew. The hole did not seal. We are coming up slowly. There are several of us. We have been counting cores for 800,000 years. Do not drill below 3,400 meters again.
800,000 years. That was before Homo sapiens, before hominins. Something had been watching the ice accumulate since the Pleistocene.
He forced his hand to the trackpad and hit forward. The recipient field autofilled her name, Lena Frost. He attached the photo, forwarded the message, and leaned back. The words still swam before his eyes.
They were counting cores the way we count tree rings. They knew every extraction, every violation.
He reread the last line. Do not drill below 3,400 meters again. It wasn't a request, it was a boundary.
If Lena didn't listen, the program would keep going, and no rule could stop what was coming up.
He watched the sent folder update. The email was now in Lena Frost's queue, alongside a pending deep core permit for the next season.
I had done my part. Now it was up to the people who signed the permits.
The video call icon blinked on Mark's screen. Lena Frost. He accepted, and her face filled the panel, tight and unreadable.
3 other engineers received the same email. Identical metadata, identical attachment.
Then you know it's real. What are we going to do?
We follow protocol. The program approved a new deep core for next season. We can't stop for an anonymous message.
It's not anonymous. It's from the old camp. It's a warning.
Opinions aren't science, Mark. We drill. That's the job.
The call ended. Mark stared at the blank screen. The email still open behind it.
They were going to do it again. Deeper. And nothing I said would stop them.
He opened a blank document and typed a single word in the header. Objection. The cursor blinked, waiting. He didn't know if he was writing a protest or a resignation. Mark spent that night scouring academic databases for studies on extremophiles, organisms that survive where no life should exist. He found papers on ancient bacteria resurrected from 2-million-year-old ice, but what he saw transcended simple prokaryotes.
Some metabolize hydrogen sulfide using geothermal heat. They could remain dormant for geological time, waiting for a disturbance.
The vertebrae-like segmentation matched Cambrian-era fossils, complex, multicellular, older than any vertebrate.
It wasn't a fossil. It was a hibernator. And it had been counting cores for 800,000 years, longer than humans had language.
He replayed the twitch in his mind. That was muscle, not just residual tension. He had awoken something.
I flipped that fluorescent switch. I flooded its hibernation with actinic light. Whatever happens next, it's on me.
He closed the research tabs and stared at the depth gauge on his desk, a relic from his first deep pull.
I won't do it again. I will not drill below 3,000 meters. Not for the program. Not for my career.
He still held the amber talisman in his other hand, a tiny insect locked in resin for 40 million years. A parallel he could not ignore. By morning, the blank document had become a formal transfer request. Surface ice shelf research. No deep drilling. He attached the objection and sent it. Lena's reply came in under an hour. Transfer approved. Effective immediately. No questions, no argument, just a knowing silence. Mark packed his duffel without ceremony. Parka, mittens, the depth gauge, the amber talisman. He left his deep core logbook on the bunk.
Someone else could drill the deep holes. I had already seen what waited at the bottom.
The Snowcat engine turned over. He sat in the passenger seat, watching the camp shrink in the side mirror. The sealed borehole cap was a dark dot on the ice, already a kilometer behind him. By the next week, Mark was at the coast, running a shallow core drill on the ice shelf. The sky was open, the work clean.
No fluorescence, no twitching, just ice from the last century and the sound of the sea beneath.
But sometimes at night, he would take out the amber piece and hold it to the lamp, remembering what he had awoken.
The hole was sealed, but it hadn't held. The things were climbing, and I was here on the surface, waiting.
A year later, a terse internal memo landed in Mark's inbox. The Deep Core program at Camp 9 had reported a catastrophic event at 3,450 meters. The drill string had punched into a void and snapped clean. All instruments went dead within minutes. Communications blacked out for 72 hours. When they resumed, the official report cited unusual biological contamination.
Contamination. That's the word they used to seal our borehole, too.
He opened the old logbook, scanning entries. The same depth, 3,450 meters, appeared in 3 other incidents over 40 years.
Every time we drill that deep, we create a new breach. The things aren't just climbing, they're using our own holes.
The memo concluded. The hole was sealed with emergency epoxy. The project suspended indefinitely. No mention of the email warning.
Suspended, not stopped. They'll drill again. Someone always does.
He stood and walked to the window. The dark water beneath the ice shelf churned with a rhythm that felt too deliberate. The amber in his pocket felt heavier. 40 million years, 800,000. Time was on their side. Back in his cabin, Mark retrieved the printed email from his desk drawer. The paper was creased from repeated folding. He smoothed it flat and read the words again. Do not drill below 3,400 meters again. A direct command from the ancient ice.
I could add my voice to theirs, but who would listen? Still, I had to try.
He picked up a heavy marker and a sheet of yellow card. The words came without hesitation. Do not drill below 3,400 m. They are already on their way up. Beneath it, in smaller letters, he added, ask about the 6 rules. The rules exist because the ice remembers.
I hope you find this before you find them.
He tacked it beside the freezer door, where every driller would see it before a deep extraction. Then he sealed a copy of the email and a summary of Rule 6 into an envelope, addressing it to future lead driller, Camp 13. The envelope went into the station's mass archive system, a digital dead drop buried in years of metadata. If anyone ever searched for Void Return, they'd find it late in the Antarctic night. Mark's email client pinged. Another anonymous message, no subject, just an attachment.
My hands were steady, but my pulse hammered in my ears. The shape was larger now, and thin filaments branched from its body.
The difference from the first photo was stark. The earlier core had been a simple, segmented form. Now it was a branching, complex organism.
It wasn't just surviving. It was maturing, changing, reaching upward.
He remembered the borehole camera feeds from the old camp, total darkness, and those 2 distant reflective eyes.
They're not alone. There are several of us, the email had said.
He deleted the photo immediately, then emptied the trash. But the image had already burned into his retina.
Every time I close my eyes, I see it growing. I can't unsee what's coming.
He sat in the dark, the only light from the screen's afterglow. Outside, the ice shelf creaked. The count was ticking upward. And somewhere below the endless kilometers of white, the ancient things were counting with it. Mark couldn't sleep. He imagined the old camp, the tents struck, the snowcat tracks fading, the cap buried under a kilometer of accumulation. But deep below, the borehole remained a dark shaft, the epoxy cap cracked, and the void teeming with patient movement.
We sealed it for a month, maybe a year, but we never sealed it for eternity.
He thought of the email's words. There are several of us. We have been counting cores for 800,000 years.
They've been counting since before our species existed. We're just the latest disturbance in a long, patient wait.
The borehole was a vertical road now, each meter a step upward, each core a marker counted off in the dark. The patience of 800,000 years was not a number. It was a strategy.
They don't need to hurry. The ice will melt eventually, or we'll drill again. Either way, they reach the surface.
Somewhere beneath the ice, in the black corridors humans had unwittingly provided, an ancient intelligence was rising, slowly, patiently, and with a full count of every insult. A week later, a snow tractor delivered 3 new drillers to the ice shelf camp. They were young, loud, and full of cocky grins. Mark watched from the window of the galley tent as they slapped each other on the back and pointed toward the deep field convoy.
They'll be given the rulebook on day 1. They'll laugh at half of it, like I did.
One of the young drillers pulled out a digital camera and took a photo of his friends. Mark's stomach tightened.
Rule 5. They don't know, and if I told them, they wouldn't believe me.
He considered walking outside, pulling them aside. But what would he say? The ice remembers you. They'd mark him as crazy.
So I just stood there, a ghost in my own parka, and let them go.
The rule book would be passed down again, and somewhere in a future core, a dark shape would twitch, and a new driller would learn why the rules existed. The cycle was older than any of them, and it would continue long after Mark was gone. He watched the snowcat leave, carrying the new crew toward their first deep core. and felt the weight of all the years still ahead. That night, alone in his cabin, Mark's mind returned to the exact moment he held the twitching core. The vertebrae had contracted, and for an instant, he felt it try to push against the ice.
It wasn't a random twitch, it was testing the barrier.
Then he recalled the sound he had tried to forget. A faint tapping, fingernails on glass, from deep in the borehole before the epoxy sealed it. 6 soft taps, deliberate, not random. A signal.
It knew we were sealing it. It was letting us know it was there.
The sound stopped only when the epoxy hit the cap. Then, silence, an absolute waiting silence. For years, Mark had convinced himself it was a settling pipe, a pressure crack. But after the email, he knew.
It was saying goodbye. Or maybe just, not yet.
He shivered. Even in the heated room, the tapping had never really stopped. It just got deeper. Mark stood at the window, the amber talisman in his hand. The trapped insect inside was a perfect mirror of the ice cores, 40 million years locked in resin. 800,000 years counting cores. Both were forms of patience. Outside, the sun was setting over the ice shelf, casting long blue shadows across the endless white.
Somewhere below the ice, in the deep, dark corridors we drilled, they are still climbing.
Not in his lifetime, perhaps, but the ice was not a permanent barrier. It was a vault with an open door. He tucked the amber back into his pocket, its weight a small, dense comfort against the infinite.
I used to think the rules would protect us. Now I know they only delay the inevitable.
He turned from the window and walked out onto the ice, the cold biting his cheeks. The darkness was coming. He stood at the edge of the camp, looking out at the darkening horizon, and for the first time he did not listen for the tapping. The sun died. The ice glowed a faint, phosphorescent blue, and somewhere deep, the count continued. A routine data sweep in the ice shelf server room recovered a buried audio file from the decommissioned Camp 8, dated the 14th of December 2018. The playback crackled. Static. Then a voice, slow and grinding, like stones shifting in the dark. We have counted all your cores. We are near the top. After the words, 3 deliberate taps, barely audible, fingernails on ice, then silence. The borehole camera showed only black, but the microphone caught a deep, resonant hum, a throat clearing miles down. Analysis flagged the file as mechanical interference. The metadata had been altered by a non-human source at 3,400 meters. The technician deleted the file and logged the drive as corrupted, but the count had been registered. The voice had nearly finished its climb. No rule in the driller's handbook could stop what was already on its way up. The screen went black, and somewhere below the eternal ice, a slow grinding voice whispered once more. Near the top,